Well, the big news today is that the PGA of America announced that it has increased the amount of money given to U.S. Ryder Cup players. Instead of $200,000 directed to charities, it will now be $300,000 to charity, with $200,000 also going to players as a stipend to be used as they see fit. Rex, you have a story up right now on golfchannel.com. What more can you tell us?
Well, first and foremost, they've always paid players. Like, this is the part I thought that got sort of twisted in this story and how it broke over the last few weeks. And it started with the Telegraph story. They started paying players $200,000 each, but that money had to go to charities. And that started way back in 1999. And I had a chance to talk with Kerry Haig, who's the interim CEO of the PGA of America. And he pointed out that it was probably time for them to update that policy. Anyway, so the idea, they had to come to some sort of delicate solution, because on one side, you had players who were seemingly being a little bit more vocal than they had in the past about wanting to be paid. And on the other side, it's always understood that money goes to charity. So it seems to me they found some sort of way to walk the tightrope. And I will also compare this to the PGA Tour's policy when it comes to paying players on the President's Cup. That's U.S. and international teams. They get $250,000 as a quote unquote stipend. Use that word. And that was probably the easiest, most eloquent solution, because you want it to go to charity. You try to convince the players that it would be best to go to charity, but you leave it to them. And I also say, Keegan Bradley, the captain of the U.S. Ryder Cup team, texted me this morning and said he's going to give all $500,000 of his to charity. And I think most players will. The idea that a Scotty Scheffler would not have played the Ryder Cup over $500,000 is silly to the extreme. However, I think this is a good move by the PGA because, again, you had to walk kind of a delicate balance.
I mean, a stipend can be used for holiday spending cash. It can be used for lavish dinners.
Grills.
In Long Island, you can use it for grills. You can use it to fly your family privately, however you want to do it. I do think it's an interesting case study in PR, though, Rex, because this was not driven by the fans. This was not an outcry from the public. The PGA of America, in fact, in its statement on Monday morning, said that, quote, no players asked to be compensated. But again, this is an organization that makes millions and millions of dollars on arguably a top 2 event of the year, reportedly $143 million in tournament revenue in the last home Ryder Cup in 2021. But the conversation over the past couple of years has been about player empowerment, player compensation. How much do you think that this move, $300,000 for charity, $200,000 as a stipend, $500,000 total, will appease the American players?
I think it will, because, again, you've sort of walked that balance, and no one wanted to see the players just get $500,000 in cash. Like, I don't think the PGA wanted to see that. I certainly don't think the fans wanted to see that. And I think most players will tell you they didn't want to see that. But when you listen to Scotty Scheffler talk about it last week at the Hero World Challenge and Justin Thomas, they clearly were trying to figure out a way to just straddle that middle ground. Because, as you pointed out, this event makes an enormous amount of money. And all of that money goes to really, really good programs with the PGA of America. However, if you're a player, if you're the product, if you're the labor on the field, you probably do feel like you're entitled to something, whatever that might be. And this something in this case is not a whole lot of money when we sit and talk about it. Like, you and I had a long conversation about the PGA charging $750 for single day tickets and how outrageous that was. And I kind of came to the PGA's defense. The idea being that this is a business. We can cloak it in the idea that this is all a charity, but this is a business, and any business will tell you that my product is worth whatever one person is willing to pay for it. And in this particular case, there were plenty of persons, including your wife, I believe, who were willing to pay $750 for a single day general admission ticket. On the other side of that coin is where we ended up. The idea that, wait a minute, the players deserve a slice of that as well. Again, $500,000 when you look at someone like Scotty Scheffler, who made $74 million on the golf course this year. It's not going to turn his head. It's not going to motivate him to play better. It's not going to do anything to his bottom line. However, I think it's a good gesture on the part of the PGA of America because the players were clearly leaning in that direction.
Keep in mind, this applies strictly to U.S. Ryder Cuppers. One interesting note here, Rex, is that European Ryder Cuppers are treated differently. They're playing on behalf of the DP World Tour, not the PGA of America. We've already seen players such as Rory McIlroy try and weaponize this issue, say that they would pay for the privilege of playing in the Ryder Cup. How much do you see it being an issue if this is not equitable at Bethpage Black in 2025 and that European Ryder Cuppers receive $500,000 as well.
As I was reporting this story over the course of the weekend, I had one official from the PGA of America ask me, are we going to be talking about this in May and April and as we get into the summer? And I said,
Depends.
no. I said, no, we're not going to be talking about it in May and April. When we get closer to the Ryder Cup, however, we aren't going to start the conversation. I go, you know better than I do that Luke Donald and the rest of the Europeans are going to start this conversation because he already has billboards made up that we pay for play for pride. They pay for pay. And they're just going to exploit this. They're going to weaponize this. And it's not the last we're going to talk about it. And it certainly does not cast the U.S. team in a favorable light on this front. Thankfully, it's a home game this year, and it shouldn't be that big of an impact. But can you imagine if it was overseas? If this happened 4 years from now and we were in Ireland, they would get destroyed.
The best event in golf, never short on controversy. And you guys know the drill. For more on this story, make sure you check out Rex's article. It's just currently up right now on golfchannel.com.